Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the final AOR event on the F1 2019 game. We're here for what we call the F100% social event, where we do a full 100% weekend around Spa-Francorchamps. Yesterday we had FP1 and FP2, and earlier today we had FP3. Now we're here for qualifying. And starting us off, we have the feeder series of F2 before the F1 cars take to the track a bit later. But before the cars come out to set their lap times, let's have a look at the 7.004 kilometers or 4.352 mile circuit. It has 19 corners, 9 to the left and 10 to the right, and 2 DRS zones and plenty of opportunities to overtake. And then, just before we head on to the track, let me introduce myself. I'm Rendtorff, and I will be your commentator for the F2 event. And later, for the F1 event, Jacob Hancox will come and join me in the comm box. But look at this. Here we have the wonderful F2 cars slowly beginning to make their way out onto the track. The F2 cars, not something you normally see be driven a lot on the F1 game, at least not competitively. So it is lovely to see that some of the drivers who are also competing in the F1 event have said yes to go on and have a small crack at the F2 cars. So as it is here in F2, you have a 30-minute qualifying, unlike in F1 where the qualifying is a Q1, Q2 and Q3 layout. Here it is just a simple 30 minutes you get to get out there, do as many laps as you want and you possibly can, and to try and get the best time, of course. But I mentioned a bit that this is of course just a feeder series and just a small part of what we have this weekend. I can just try and sum up how the schedule will look like both today and tomorrow as well, where we have the races. We're starting here, of course, here at about 10 minutes past 7 UK time with the F2 qualifying. That will run to about 7:40-ish, depending on if there's any technical difficulties, which we don't hope, of course, but you can never know. But that will then run, and then we'll go on a short break, of course, talk about how the qualifying went, and we'll go down over how the drivers shape out. But then we will have a short break whilst we behind the scenes prepare some stuff, and then we will return at 8 PM UK time with the F1 qualifying. And that will be, as you know it from the real life, we'll go straight in with Q1, where we'll be eliminating the first 5 drivers, then Q2 and then Q3. But that is just tonight. The real treat comes tomorrow, where we will be live all the way from about 5:25, 5:30 PM, as we just have to have a small look here what's going on now. Just have to stop myself there. Something has happened. Someone has crashed. And oh wow, yes, that is FX Rupert has crashed in qualifying. That means that they will start from the back. So already after just 3.5 minutes, losing a driver, just coming out of the Stavolo campus section there. And then it is just so easy to head off into the wall there if you go a bit wide, maybe a bit on cold tyres or pushing it a bit too hard. But as I was saying before I cut myself so rudely off there, tomorrow we will be live from about 5:25, 5:30 with the F2 race. Well, with both F2 races. Starting there at 5:30 we have the F2 feature race, and heading after that straight into the sprint race with the reverse grid, as you know and love. Then that'll run till about 7:45 before we then head straight over into the main event, you could call it, the full F1 100% race, which will be running from 8 PM till 10 PM, the exact same way as it is done in real life. But let's stay in the moment. Let's have a look at how the drivers are sorting themselves out here for the F2 grid tomorrow. In F2, it is the same rules as in F1 with the tyre choice. If you qualify in the top 10, you have to start on that set of tyres. But if you start outside of the top 10, it is just like in F1. You have a complete free choice. You can go bonanza with the strategy if that is what you so desire. And currently, we have 7 drivers who have set lap times. Slowly, the drivers just out there coming in with their banker lap times. Of course, 24 minutes to go, so plenty of time for these drivers if they make a small mistake here or there. Interestingly, most of the drivers choosing the medium tyre instead of what you'd normally see in F1 go for the soft tyres. Although 2 drivers, Steve Jackson and Darius, has decided to go on the soft tyres. Now I'm board here with Steve coming down to Pouon, as it'll just be interesting to observe how his time will look like come the end of this lap, because it does look like he's out there pushing for a lap time there. As you can just see, yeah, he has fitted that tyre, the softs, and they are on 0 laps, meaning that they are on the qualifying lap. Darius finishing their lap off on the soft tyres with a 2:03.601, so plenty of time up to Flash in first place there. But of course, plenty of times to go. It is a long circuit, this, so it is easy to just lose a 10th here or there, but you are able to win it back come the end of the track. But here, Steve comes, opens the DRS, and across the line. 8th place with just about 23 minutes to go. A 2:01.671. But, of course, plenty of time to go. The drivers out there, since there weren't any practice like we had in the F1, there's no practice for the F2 cars, so it is just straight in there and go for the qualifying. So I think what most drivers are looking to do here is to just get the car to know, or just get to know the car before actually coming out there and setting the fastest laps. As you see, it can go wrong. Rupert crashing very early in the session, meaning that they will start from the back of the grid. They have no choice. But that is just a perfect opportunity to have a bit of fun in the race. But you are, of course, also susceptible to be stranded at the back, stuck behind a car you can't just get past, and then there's not much to do. Then you're just stuck down there, and that's it. Luckily, Spa is one of those circuits where it is quite the easy thing to overtake on, not unlike places like Monaco, where the qualifying is the most important thing you'll do the whole weekend. Here at Spa, of course, qualifying is important, but you can overtake. It is one of the easiest tracks to overtake with the long camel straight. The DRS you get from there, if you get a good toe up through Eau Rouge and up to Radion and down the camel straight with the DRS and the slipstream as well, it is quite easy to get a pass in there and then defend through sector 2. But you are then susceptible to a car coming back at you into the bust up chicane come the latter stages of the lap. But that is just great for our spectators. We get a great showing of what the drivers are able to do, and if you are able to stick through the dirty air off sector 2 after getting overtaken on the camel straight, you are really setting yourself up for the overtake through Blanchimont, the left-hander, if you're really daring, or you can go with it into the bus stop chicane and with some DRS down to the start-finish line into La Source. Here we see Wamski, one of the few drivers not to set a lap time yet in this qualifying. Of course, still plenty of time to go. We've just dipped below the 20-minute mark. So these drivers have no fear for running out of time. Normally, when AOR has qualifying sessions for the leagues, it is 18 minutes. So you maybe have 2, 3, maybe 4 attempts if you're really quick, but you are really susceptible to just ruin your attempts completely and then be out of the running, and you will be forced to go with a lower grid position. Here you have plenty of time, so if you mess up your first attempt, you can go in, come into the pits, get a new set of tyres, get fueled up, recompose yourself. Here in F2 for this event we have a fixed setup, so the only thing the drivers can change, I believe this, I'm not quite sure, but I believe it is the wing angle that they can change in a pit stop, and it is the braking balance between 50% and 60%. So it is a fixed setup, and we are running on equal car performance. So this is a test of the driver's might and the driver's ability to make strategy calls, which is just great to see. We will and also brings less pressure to the drivers in the search that they don't have to think about the strategy, or sorry, the setup too much before the race or before qualifying. So it is really just the simplest things that they can change. As now all the drivers still running in this session have set their lap times. Of course, Rupert going out early in the session. Through the corner we're just seeing Wamski come through now. We of course didn't see it, but the way the car was stationary on track, we can presume that they went wide through Paul Frere, and then just it is so easy to just slam into that sticky out bit of tyre wall that you see on the left hand side, and if you hit it, it is game over. You can be lucky with the contact and only really get front wing damage and spin out, but you are more than likely to get your wheels ripped completely off and get spun back on track. Although with that said, during a race it can cause quite a bit of chaos if a driver goes wide, hits the wall, and they're close in a pack and they spin back on track. So that might be something we'll have to watch out for tomorrow once the race is on. But that is of course all to come tomorrow. First the drivers have to complete qualifying. As we can see, some of the drivers still out there on the medium tyre, setting their lap times on that, but a couple more drivers are beginning to opt for that soft tyre. And looking at the forecast for tomorrow, there has been rumoured to be some rain in the air at the Ardennes forest. Of course, we know that already. The Ardennes forest is notorious for being tricky with the weather, and you can just so easily get caught out in a rain shower, an unpredictable rain shower. And that is, of course, what we as spectators are hoping for once the race goes ahead tomorrow. I'm currently looking for the weather data for tomorrow to see how it will look. But first of all, we're seeing here the qualifying. It has been, the weather is dry, as you can see. A few clouds beginning to go over the circuit, but it is nothing that the drivers will have to worry about. It will just lower the track temperatures. There is absolutely no rain forecasted. Although saying that, there has been forecasted a slight possibility of rain during the F1 race, or the F1 qualifying and race. The rain in qualifying would come towards the end, so it would be mid Q1 or mid Q3. So the drivers would already have been out to set their lap times, but saying that, it does spring that extra small sprinkle on top of what is already an exciting weekend. But the weather is, of course, only something we can predict. It is never something we can be 100% sure of before it actually happens. But we can, of course, as always, as a racing fan, hope for a small rain shower come either qualifying or the race. Now here on board with Flash, who currently holds the provisional pole position, coming into La Source there. He's decided to switch on to the soft tyres. Got his first lap in on the medium tyres. Now coming down to Rouge and then climbing up the hill, the right-hander there, up to Radion. And then it's just to fire it down the Camel straight. He opens the DRS there. And then coming down to Le Calme here, it is notoriously easy to just get caught on a curb here and to spin the car if you get a bit too eager. But he makes it nicely through the right-hander, then left, and then right once again, where he'll have to watch out for not going too wide, since that can bring some gravel onto the circuit and onto the tyres. Then into that very, very tricky right-hander of Brussels before coming down to No Name, the left-hander there, before coming down to Poumon, which in an F1 car is almost flat out, but here you see the F1 drivers have to lift and give a small dabble of brake coming into the left-hander. The F2 cars not having as much grip as the F1 cars. Now coming into Campus before going over to Stavelot there, the right-hander, and then it is just through the tricky left-hand section of Sector 3, as you see Flash just putting it purple in Sector 2, so a small improvement for him here with 12 minutes to go. Will he improve his time enough to possibly secure him a pole position? Let's see, as there comes Jack in with the 1:59.020, so puts it provisionally pole. Flash's teammates here as he comes to the bus stop chicane, right then left, opens the DRS, takes the shortest route down to the start finish line, and there he goes, 1:58.634, and that is a new fastest lap. Flash there, new provisional pole position. Great to see there, as his teammate there currently resides in second place. MP Motorsport looking to make it a 1-2, as we have just about 11 minutes to go of qualifying. Now looking at Lendl down in 5th. First lap on the soft tyres. I believe their first lap was also on the mediums. Yes, it was. You see most drivers there, their best laps was put out on the soft tyres or the medium tyres, and now some of them are coming out to go for the soft tyres. As there Lenvalon just going a bit too wide into Pouon, which is very easy to do, and that is where you just get your lap invalidated so easily. Nothing you can do. All four wheels off the track, and it's an invalidation. Nothing really to debate there. But now let's see where the rest of the drivers are. Of course, 10 minutes to go. It is tightening up now. It is now where a mistake is more costly. It is not just the bank laps we're talking about. With 10 minutes to go, you really need to compose yourself. 2/3 already gone of qualifying, and it is now the track really gets grippy and really gets to the best possible qualifying opportunity, and it is really now the best times really come in. So if you mess up your final attempt or your final 2 attempts, you lose quite a bit of time, because over qualifying, track can improve about a second, plus you have to think of the driver improvement as you become more confident and you go out there and actually push properly come the end of qualifying. As we now see Carlos Abreu in the Arden currently in 4th place. He resides in on the soft tyres, got his last lap invalidated, but now out on their qualifying lap. First lap on the soft tyres, coming through the right hander of La Source, down the straight down to Rouge, and then up to Radion, down the Camel straight. Let's see what he will be able to produce. If he wants to get up on pole position, he'll have to be a 158.634. As you can see, the AM and RGM has been up there and just made a bit of spacing for the MP Motorsport cars there. So they are inside, just a small sandwich there, as Carlos now coming up to Lacombe through into sector 2. Now it's just down the hill, down that long hill that you climbed up at Eau Rouge up to Radion, through Brussels there. So tough to get through and still have a bit of time. Through No Name, keeps it nicely on the track, down to Pouon. Let's see, will he be able to keep it on the track and keep it valid? Takes it nicely towards the left-hander, keeps it great there, hits the double apex and doesn't go too wide off the track. Now in to Stavelot before he'll go over to Campus, the left-hander there. Let's see, as he just comes to the end of sector 2, is it an improvement? There we have the line. It is an improvement. It is the fastest sector 2 for anyone on track currently. He's in 5th place now. Will he be able to push for pole position? Coming through up to the left hand of Blanchemont there now. Hits the apex nicely, coming through, doesn't go too wide, doesn't get his lap invalidated. Now into the bus stop chicane, brakes at the about 100 meter board, goes right, then left, still keeps it on the track, doesn't get invalidated. Something you can do on the curbs. Opens the Dura short line, and it's only enough for 3rd place for now. As RGM comes in there with a 158.535, and that is a new provisional pole position with about 6 minutes to go of qualifying. The times are beginning to tumble. All the drivers now out has their tyres fitted with the soft tyres. Still a couple of drivers only having their fastest lap set on the mediums, but I can assure you that will change. Currently Tudor in 6th place in the arts. What will he be able to do? Currently on an out lap for his first lap on the soft tyres. Previously, best lap was set on the mediums. Now coming up to the bus stop chicane to start his lap. Right, and goes all the way almost into the pit lane there to just get the best exit possible. Try to get as much speed as possible into La Source, the right hander there. Quite sharp in there, goes and doesn't hit the apex quite. That could lose him about 100th of a second, and as you can see at the top, that can cost you a possible pole position. The field though still quite spread out as Tudor comes up and opens the DRS to go down the Camel Straight. As I talked about earlier, the sky is closing up a bit, but no rain has been forecasted. Now he's coming into Lake Holm, and then it begins to traverse the hill he climbed just before, and goes all out of shape, coming through there, hits the wall, and I think he's lucky not to lose a front wing there. Just gets a bit too eager on the exit of the Lacombe complex, and then it's just onto the curb, losing it, trying to correct it, and then just a small tap onto the wall. With 4 minutes and 50 seconds to go, if he wants to get in and get a new set of tyres, it'll be close. You really want to be out with about 2.5 minutes to go, maybe even more. But if Tudor needs to get back to the pits, change his tyres, maybe even fix a front wing, that is also a thing that could have happened in that small contact. It could be detrimental. Tudor currently resides in 8th place, but could fall further down in the case that he isn't able to get out for another attempt. Now, 4 minutes to go. It is about time. We are going to see it all close up now. 30 minutes of qualifying will come down to this, your final attempt. But let's just keep an eye on Tudor. He decides not to go into the pits. That is probably a sign that he did not catch any front wing damage and that his tyres are still in great condition. You have to remember, if you qualify in the top 10, you have to start on that tyre. Now, Tudor into turn 1, hits the apex nicely. Then down to Eau Rouge, up that hill. The F2 cars, they're just getting pressed down so much, taking them flat out like the F1 cars, although doesn't have the same amount of speed. The F1 car's taking it around 310 kilometers an hour. The F2 car's just managing around 250, maybe stretching it to 280 if you have a good exit off Lacombe or off La Source. But Tudor now into Lacombe. Will he make the same mistakes on the last lap? Doesn't look like it. Now he's able to traverse down the hill nicely, coming into Brussels, the right-hander there. Then it'll be over to No Name. What about that? Can he take it nicely there? Switches down to third gear with a small double brake. Then down the hill to Poumon he goes, into the left-hander. Small double brake again into the fourth gear. Takes a bit wider line than we saw Flash do early in the session, but that isn't necessarily not bad. That means that you just carry a bit more speed through there. It is all about, are you compromising the speed or do you want to go less of a distance? You get about the same, it is more about what line you choose. Now, coming into Sector 2, or Sector 3, sorry, it's an improvement in Sector 2, but it is not enough to set it the fastest sector yet. Let's see, as he comes up into Blanchemont, there's some yellow flags ahead. That is just for a slow moving car. No one has crashed, luckily for them. Now into the bus stop chicane. What will Tudor be able to do? It will be about his final attempt if he wants to get pristine tyres conditions for the race. Opens the Giro, shortest line to the line there. He goes up into 5th place there. With 1 minute 40 to go, he just backed off. He is not going to set another qualifying time. Behind, we see RGM finishing off. Sorry, no, that's not RGM. Who was that starting their lap? It was one of the Arden cars, I believe. Yes, no, actually it was Steve Jackson finishing off his lap down in 13th. Not able to improve much on his time. Now Niels Bywater down in 11th place. He's pushing on this lap, coming into the bus stop chicane. Let's see what he'll be able to do. Over the curbs there, but unfortunately he's gotten his lap invalidated. So now it's just all to push. He will, it looks like he'll try to go for another attempt to see what he'll be able to do. As I believe I believe RGM. Yes, RGM is about to start their final flying lap. 30 seconds to go. Behind, the AM is starting their final flying lap. And behind them, let's see, looks like it might be Flash. Flash has now started their lap as well. So the top 3 for now. Let's follow them round as time is running out. We can look at the rest of the qualifying when we get to the end. But now just let's keep an eye as time runs out. The checkered flag is out. Leonard Voller won't start higher than 6th. Doggo won't start higher than 8th. And Scotty Make won't start higher than 9th. But let's see for the rest of the drivers. Carlos Abreu crossing the line, won't start higher than 3rd. Improving on his previous best time. The top 5 is split by 0.2 of a second. As we just see RGM there in Sector 2 getting a bit wayward on the exit off Brussels down towards No Name, so that might be detrimental for his time as he goes very wide through Pouon. That will invalidate his lap time. So that is that. RGM's times to beat is 1:58.535. He won't be able to improve on that. Let's see for the AM. He's in 4th place currently. I don't know if he improved on his Sector 1 time, but let's see as he comes to the end of Sector 2. Is he able to improve on that as he goes very wayward in Campus there? He spins round and he won't be able to improve. He'll start no higher than 4th place. Everyone else has finished their lap times there. Flash getting very close and Flash has gotten his lap time validated. That means that RGM will start on pole position for tomorrow's race with a 1:58.535. As I said, with the time running out, you just don't want to mess up your final attempt. But there you see it, gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, that is how the grid lines up. Although the AM still on their lap, but with a 2:10 lap time looking to go now, as we're just waiting for the AM to pit in now or retire from the session so we can get the full official standings up and running. FX Rupert will start from last place tomorrow. Unfortunately, he crashed very early in the session, about 2 minutes in, after he came into contact with the sticky out bit of tyre wall at Curb Paul Frere, which is very easy to do, especially when you are pushing the car. As we're now just waiting for the AM's car to neutralize itself, and we can see the times, or well, we can see the times, we can see how they officially line up. As you can see, RGM 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 will get pole position for tomorrow's race. Flash in the MP Motorsport car taking the 2nd front row grid spot. Then Carlos Abreu in the Arden in 3rd place. The AM takes 4th place. Tudor in 5th in the Art. Len Vord in the Sauber Juba team takes 6th place. Then Jack in 7th in the MP Motorsport. Doggo takes 8th place. Neil takes 9th in the Dams. And Scotty takes 10th place. Have to remember, Scotty, Neil Bywater and Doggo will all be in perfect contention for taking the reverse grid pole position in the race. Then Wamsky takes 11th, Darius 12th, Steve Jackson 13th, and FX Rupert will start from last place in tomorrow's race. But what a qualifying that was. The drivers just battling it hard out on the track there, trying to get the best times possible. And the fireworks we looked for at the end came, but didn't really, as the drivers just faltered in the last seconds. But RGM's second to last lap was a lap time that was good enough to stand and was good enough to give him the pole position. But now, that is it for F2 for today. Tomorrow, of course, we will be back with the F2 races as well. But don't you worry, there is plenty more to come here. And for an F1 race, you need to decide a grid. But that is all to come. Now it is just for you guys on for a small break, and then we'll be back in about 10 to 15 minutes with the F1 qualifying. So until then, take care, and trust me, we'll be back for the F1 qualifying. Well, welcome back everyone, and welcome to what will decide the grid for tomorrow's F1 race. We are here for the F1 qualifying, and luckily I don't have to do this all by myself. I have gotten Jacob to join me in the box here tonight. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm very glad to be here, and apologies for leaving you all on your own to cover F2, but you did a remarkable job of it anyway, so you evidently didn't need my help for that one, but I'm here nevertheless for F1, and this is a new challenge that I'm very much looking forward to, doing a whole 100% qualifying and then the race tomorrow as well. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yes, certainly. It's not something we're used to, of course. We're used to the short qualifying of 18 minutes and then a 50% race straight after, but now today it's a bit more different. We are doing, of course, the 100% qualifying Q1, Q2 and Q3 in the end, and then we're going on to, and then a whole day later we're going to do the full race as if it was in real life. So very much a new challenge for us commentators, but certainly one that, as you also mentioned, that we're very excited to take on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it really gets me in the mood, at least. I hope it gets everyone else in the mood as well for the return of the F1 season here in just a couple of weeks' time. And I think this is a really good way to get yourself back into the flow, to remind yourself what the sort of weekend feels like. There's already been free practice sessions. These weren't broadcast, but these drivers have attended free practice sessions as well. So they're really doing it the whole way here, and it's really getting them in the mood. And now that we can see, now that we're here for qualifying and then the race as well, it's getting us in the mood as well. And it looks like we are actually just getting into the lobby now.
Yeah, it does. The driver's slowly loading up. Of course, something different to the F1 that went in the F2. Here for the F1, the setup is completely free. So the drivers have used all free practice sessions and possibly also some time by themselves perfecting their setups and getting them to the top level, as it is quite a long way to drive if you don't have the perfect setup. So they're slowly loading in. Of course, the second they leave the box in the pits, it's locked. Park ferme is on. They can't change. As here, jumping onto the race, it is quite overcast, it looks like, as Q1 has just begun. There was quite a bit of scare there in the left-hand corner with it saying 15 laps, but no, it is qualifying, luckily. Yeah, it's just about 18 minutes to go. No one deciding to go out here early on, but that just gives us a small chance to set everything up.
Absolutely, and gives them all a small chance to set everything up as well. And thinking of setup, looking at the sky there, it's definitely not a clear day here, so I wonder if that's factoring into anyone's setups, even if just a little bit here, of course. I don't know what the actual race conditions will be. I don't know if they've even been locked in yet or not. I don't know if the drivers know, so it'll be interesting to see what they have to do around that. They are starting to come out of the pits now in this qualifying session, but a little sprinkle of rain just in the middle of this qualifying session would be beautiful. It would really mix things up nicely.
Yes, certainly. And for the weather for tomorrow, I heard some rumours that there might come some rain, some small drizzles, or maybe some more heavy rain. But of course, we don't know. It hasn't been locked in yet. It is all for the weather guards to tell us once that time comes. But staying in the present here at the start of qualifying, it is quite overcast. I wouldn't be surprised if we get some small drizzle come the end of Q1, maybe mid Q2, and maybe following into to Q3, so we might get an intermediate and maybe it drying up, but that is just wishful thinking. We of course don't quite know. But the drivers slowly making their way out. All the drivers here you can see out on the dry tyres. Everyone out on the soft tyres for now, it seems. Yeah, everyone has the soft tyre fitted. So they obviously thinking that they should get out and get a time in case there is a small drizzle towards the end of Q1.
Yeah, there's only a few drivers staying in the pits at the moment. Flash was actually leading the way, at least on my end, around the track, and he looked like he was going to be the first to settle out, but then he left the session. And in fact, he's been moved straight back to the pits again, and here's Haas, so I'm not entirely sure what that's about. But Jackal Jack, 7 in the McLaren, will be the first of these drivers to start the first flying lap of this qualifying session here for the F100% event here at Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. In the McLaren he goes, and it's actually not the neatest start to his lap off of the final corner there. It's a tricky traction zone at the best of times, and with some slightly underheated tyres, but like he struggled just a little bit. But into La Source he goes, running nicely over the curbing on the exit, and not too bad. And actually, I see sprinkles of rain already, I think, from on board with Jackal Jack here. That might have been... Yeah, no, there's
no, that is rain.
Down.
That is rain. So, like, I see 3 drivers currently in the pits. 1 coming out now, so the driver's not out now on the dry tyres probably won't make it out of Q1, because if it begins to rain and it goes to intermediate conditions, that's it. So it'll be like a normal qualifying session, almost Q3, because it will be the excitement of who timed it perfectly here, and this might even show some front runners go out if they were too late out of the pits. Plus, very changeable conditions and challenging as well. So a spin here or there could really show you way down the grid.
Absolutely, and you mentioned the drivers. There are a couple still left in the pits when the rain started coming down. One of those was Kruzix in the Red Bull, and Kruzix is one of the 2 AOR F1 drivers from Season 19 in the field here today. And Kruzix would absolutely, you'd expect him to be right at the front of the grid, of course. He second only to Andonator, perhaps, in terms of which ones you'd describe as the favourites for this event. But Kruzix could have really blundered massively here, waiting just that extra lap while everyone else did their outlaps. He was sitting there in the pits. He's now out there on an outlap in the Red Bull. But with those soft tyres on and with the rain coming down, it's going to be very, very tough for him to put in a competitive lap, the likes of which the other drivers will be able to put in. So this could be really bad news for him.
Yes, you must say, as if you just wait a bit too long, as you mentioned, you could have lost it all. Normally you would wait a bit to let the track get a bit rubbered in, but not in these conditions, as we're currently on board with what must be Kruzix's newest competitor, Andonator. He's currently down in 15th place without a time. Most drivers don't have a time. He is coming through Sector 3 now. Up to Blanchimont he goes through now. Also, as everyone else, on the dry tyres, coming into the bus stop chicane. He put it purple in Sector 2, I saw. Don't know about Sector 1, but you must think that he would do so. Coming across the line there, and yes, it is provisional fastest lap here. But have a look at Kruzix. He has just started his lap, and the rain has been falling for a couple of minutes now, and that means that the track will just be that bit more slippery than it was when Andonator set their time. So let's just see. Kruzix now coming down to Les Combes. What are the conditions for him there? Looks alright there, coming through nicely. Doesn't really lose too much time through there, but I am sure that he is sitting and sweating in the cockpit, trying not to put his foot down too much there. It's coming out of Brussels. There was a bit of a squealy line there, but now into Pouhon. Let's see, can he keep it on the track? Looks like he can, and it looks like he's able to keep it nicely online without losing too much time. Now coming through the back parts of Sector 2, coming up to where it splits. It is not the fastest Sector 2, so he is losing time compared to Andonator, and that is quite possible that it is because it is a bit more slippery out there currently than it was when Andonator put his time in, because Andonator was in the mix with everyone else, whilst Kruzix now is actually the last driver to set a lap time on the dry tyres, as he only goes into 6th place now. The only drivers not to set lap times are Flash and Carlos Abreu, which I don't think they're going to make it out of Q1 with that they're still in the pits on dry tyres.
Yeah, Flash left the session earlier, and I don't know if he's been able to reconnect or not, so he's going to be in a spot of bother, and it looks like Carlos Abreu has, in fact, invalidated his first effort, so he's sitting down at the bottom at the moment, and I think the way this works with only 17 drivers in the field is that only the 16th and 17th drivers will be eliminated from this Q1 session. Usually it'll be the bottom 5, but I think it's just anyone below 15th place, 16th and under, will be going out, so Carlos Abreu needs to do something about that. And Flash, if he can get back into the session, needs to do something about that. But that was a pretty good lap from Kruzix, really, all things considered. He must have been really, really nervous watching the rain come down, hoping that the conditions just stayed dry enough throughout the whole of his lap. And they did. The rain has been coming down for quite a long time now. But the dry tyres still seem like the tyres to be on. And it still seems that you could put in a decent lap time at the moment. The track's certainly greasier than it would usually be. But it's definitely not the end of the world for these drivers on these soft tyres. And a couple of them, maybe it's catching them out just a little bit. RGM towards the bottom of the order in 13th place at the moment, so he's not that safe where he's sitting with a 146.1. And given the fact that he was just very recently put himself on pole in the F2 qualifying, that's pretty surprising to see him down there. So he must have had a little bit of a mistake on his previous effort. But right now, the track has become pretty untenable for these tires. I think I'm watching him drive around in the second of the Red Bulls, and it just looks like a nightmare out there.
And someone else we're currently looking at is Carlos Abreu. He is out on an outlap currently, and I think he's just out there hoping that he can get a lap in while the conditions are just, you can just hang on for the dry tyres, because everyone has gone into the pits now, and I don't really think there's a point for these drivers to get out on a set of intermediates and risking you crash. So now that they have a lap time, they're all, most of them at least, are safe. It is only the bottom 2 really that can fall out. Dominic as well, actually thinking that he can get a lap in as well on the dry tyres. As currently Carlos Abreu starting his lap, coming into the first corner. Wasn't the neatest of Lassours I've ever seen, and on the exit as well. Wasn't really able to get the traction down. Let's have a look there, lifting quite a bit up the hill to Radion. So clearly losing time in these conditions, but he just needs to get round and get a decent enough time in, and then he'll be there. But
yeah, I think it's going to be really, really tough for him to be able to put in a decent enough lap in these conditions, though.
Certainly.
You can see how much he's struggling through Bruxelles, especially. Look at that. There's no way that's going to be anywhere near the times that the other drivers have been putting in. So that's really, really bad news for Carlos Abreu, especially because if you look up at the sky, it doesn't seem like there's any hint of blue sky anywhere around here. So it doesn't look like the conditions are going to get any better anytime soon. And for the Racing Point driver, the sole representative of Racing Point in this session, that is not very good news at all, and he is almost certainly going to be consigned down to 16th place on the grid.
No, unfortunately for him, as with just about 7 minutes to go, we have a couple of drivers out trying their luck on the dry tyres, but I would think it is more of a risk in these conditions than it is worth going out there. But for Carlos Abreu, it is something he needs to do, a risk he needs to take, as all going very deep into the bus stop chicane, going very much offline, and he has a 147 to beat and puts in a 152. I unfortunately for him think that it is a goodbye, as Andonator has now decided to pop on a set of intermediate tyres. Maybe he wants to hob out and have a look at the conditions, as I did see him in Friday's training, a Friday training where it started out pouring it down, full wet conditions, then it went to intermediate conditions, and I did watch a couple of drivers, some of them, including Andonator, were able to get quite the good lap times in, so possibly he could go out there and match a dry run or a dry tyre run in these conditions on intermediates. I don't think it'll happen, but who knows?
Yeah, you never know. But yeah, the intermediate tires, a couple of drivers now sitting on them in the pits, and actually, I think that's Tudor probably heading out of the pit lane. He has strapped on a set of intermediates. Is that him leaving the pits? I believe it is. So he is going to go out for a bit of a sighter here. And of course, what this could mean is that these drivers could be suspecting that the next session, Q2, will also be in these similar conditions, and they're trying to work out whether they'd want to be on the intermediates or the dry tires in that next session. And also, furthermore, if it is going to be the intermediate tires, they want to have the advantage of having a bit of a feel for the track, a bit of a feel for the intermediate tires sooner than the other guys in the field who haven't elected to leave the pits. As it stands, though, it's only Tudor that's gone out there. Pantaleev, Dominic has actually come back into the pits now, but Pantaleev and Carlos Abrao are still out there on their soft tires, circulating very slowly indeed. And I think they're just trying to gather information as well, that with only 4 minutes and 50 seconds left in this session and the rain not going away, I don't think we're going to see any faster lap times for the remainder. But it might be worth keeping an eye on what the guys on the intermediate tires can do, as Vega Z has also left the pits in the Renault on those green-walled tires.
Oh, it's Tudor there, right as you say that. Coming through Pouon, just gets a little bit off the center line and just losing it as he has to counter steer. Luckily saves it and doesn't hit the wall, but that is just showing how treacherous the conditions are out there, and race control clearly thinking the same, as the DRS has been disabled, which is normally the clear sign that you do not want to be on a set of slick tyres, as Tudor there struggling quite a bit, almost hitting the wall at Curb Paul Frere, as we saw one of the F2 drivers do in that qualifying session. So very treacherous conditions out there currently, and the drivers really having to just tiptoe round.
Yeah, of course, you don't want to smash up your car, of course. That's something you got to consider, because I'm not actually 100% sure on how this works, but I think what would happen is if they crash out in this session, Tudor will not be able to participate in the next one, in Q2. I believe that would be the case. So it's worth having a sighter on these intermediate tires, but it's worth not pushing it all that hard, especially coming up here into the scariest part of the track, up through, or down through Eau Rouge and up through Raidillon, and all there he goes over the grass with his right front.
Or RGM as well off there. You just looked up ahead. I think he had an escapade on this outlap there, through up the hill there and up over the crest there. Of course, the car coming over the crest, you've gotten used to laying it on there with a couple of extra G, then it lifts itself, doesn't catch air, but that push you've gotten up the hill, it lifts itself, and in these conditions you can really aquaplane coming up the crest there, as Tudor there really through Brussels struggling and just goes wide onto the first the tarmac and then continues over the grass. But if you do crash out, you are out. There is nothing your engineers or yourself can do to get back in qualifying. So what you want to do now, if you're clever, you want to go out there, get a feel for the conditions, but you don't want to push. For the love of God, you don't want to get out there and crash your car. So get out there, get a feel for the track before you push in the next session, because the rain is coming down quite hard. I don't think it's hard enough for full wets, as we're only just over or just about 2 minutes away from seeing Q2. So I don't think we'll be anywhere near full wets, but certainly it will be time for the intermediates, as Dominic has retired. I really hope for him that it is something that he has been able to do in the pits, and it means that he is able to still drive. I hope he hasn't crashed anywhere. I really hope.
I'm pretty sure he is. He was in the pits when he retired. I just slightly nervous that maybe retiring from this session retires you from Q2 as well. I'm sure what Dominic's done is what you'd quite usually do in a 50% qualifying. Whenever you have the short qualifying, sometimes if you think it's done and there's nothing more you can do, you just retire from the session so you can watch the other cars going around on the track. But Yeah, I just want to make. I mean, Vega Z has also retired now, but that was actually out on track, I think. No, he did come
Yeah,
back into the pits before retiring. A few
same.
guys
Yeah.
retiring from the session now, so I assume that will all be okay.
Yes, I certainly hope. As yeah, I'm currently just looking for those yellow flags and seeing if anyone retires after those. It looks like the drivers are pretty careful out there on track and just really feeling their way around, since it is really a good idea to know your way around the track in these conditions before you go out there and push on a low fuel run, just attacking the track. But
So,
yeah,
sorry, just to
yes,
quickly interject here, those yellow flags in Sector 3 at Stavilo there, that was actually for Zanefast's retirement, and I didn't catch it. I didn't see any wreckage in the wall down there, so he might have just retired while out on track. There is kind of an escape road on the right-hand side that the AI might have pulled into there. There's just slightly nervous that Zanefast might have actually crashed out of this session. I'm not entirely sure about that. I think he's probably just retired the car in a normal sort of way. As the timer now ticks down to 0, so just a couple of guys left on track to complete their laps. Huni, MD, CEO, and RGM, and VAM and Tudor will all be completing their laps out here on the track, but of course they will not be going any faster in these conditions.
no, certainly not. The drivers just finishing off their lap. Let's see. Nah, Huni not even close. 11.8 seconds slower than his fastest lap during the changeable conditions. So the drivers just trundling around there, feeling the conditions, really preparing for the Q2, and the Q2 where it will matter quite a bit when you come out, since in these conditions we could maybe at the end possibly see the wet tyres being used, but let's just wait and see for that, as the drivers will be battling it out and we will see times tumble during Q2, and it will be when we see the drivers really attacking the circuit on a intermediate run. But now the drivers finishing it all off. I think the only driver we're waiting for is the AM finishing off his lap. He ended up in 8th place, so he is nicely through into Q2. No worries there for him.
Yeah, and just behind him on track is MD CEO in the first of the two Williams as well, currently sitting in 3rd position. So 2 Mercedes on top here in Q1 and 2 Williams following them behind. I'm not surprised to see both of the Mercedes sitting at the top of the standings, as probably, if you're going to average out the 2 drivers across all of the teams, I'd say Mercedes are the team with the best overall drivers here. Of course, Andernator probably the best driver in the field if you're going by his performance in regular AOR leagues. He is, of course, an F1 driver, and he finished 11th in F1 in the standings last season. And Huni as well participated in F3 in season 19, although he didn't actually finish the season. But there you go. You can take a look at the standings now. And of course, the most important thing to note is the fact that Carlos Sobral and Flash224 have both been eliminated here. Flash never got going in this session, having left the session early on, probably due to a connection issue, and never managed to get back in. So the German driver in the Haas will be starting down in 17th, and Carlos Sobral in the Racing Point, the Brazilian, will be starting in 16th.
Yes, certainly. Unfortunate for those two, especially for Flash with the connection issues. It's never something you want to see for a driver, especially not during qualifying or anything like that. And now into Q2, still raining, the same conditions as before, but of course the drivers haven't been out there to spray some of the water away, so the racing line is a bit more slippery than it was a few minutes ago when we were in Q1, but now the drivers coming out, and in this session it will be everyone from 10th and down. 10th place will make it through, but it'll be 11, 12, 13, 14th and 15th all eliminated. And in these conditions there is no such thing as if you come out at the right time with the dry tyres. It will be a battle on the intermediates.
Absolutely, yeah. And just thinking about the drivers who were eliminated just now, so that's Flash 224 and Carlos Abrao, of course. Flash, we didn't get to see him going, of course, but that he was probably one of the drivers you'd expect to be sort of just in win with a sort of sniff of the podium here, actually. Flash 224 finished 4th in F3 in season 19, so you'd have expected him to run pretty well in this field. And so that's going to be a bit of a comeback drive if he's going to reach anything like the potential we would have expected for him tomorrow evening, of course, when it actually comes to the race itself. And Carlos Abrao managed to finish 4th in the Americas F1 League. And so that's a pretty respectable showing as well for the Brazilian. So another driver we might have seen as maybe somewhere in the midfield, a relatively strong driver. So losing those two early has given a couple of other drivers who may have been struggling under normal circumstances, perhaps it's just given them a little bit of a chance to get further up the grid here as well.
Yes, you must say, and that is something that I talked about earlier in these changeable conditions and wet conditions as well. It gives that chance to drivers you don't normally see, because a driver may be fast in the dry, but we've seen time and time again that they might not be fast in the wet as well. As talking about the wet, I'm beginning to see some blue patches of sky, so maybe we'll see a showdown in Q3 at the end to see someone daring it on a set of dry tyres, but that is all to come. The first couple of drivers, or everyone actually, I hadn't even realised that, everyone, all 15 drivers out on laps currently, some out on out laps, some others have started their laps. It looks like in Sector 3, just at the bus stop chicane, there's quite the traffic jam as people are trying to give distance to each other and trying not to bump into each other at the same time to get the best possible exit and start to their laps. But looks like everyone made it through fine and able to start the laps without any damage or of some sort. But the first driver to test these conditions on a flying lap is Johan Bopp. Went straight out there and got his lap time invalidated coming through a rouge, just cut the corner a bit too much. The driver just after that, who's still pushing, is Jackal Jack. Coming down towards Pouon now. Now we'll really see how it looks coming through there in these conditions. Just braking quite a bit and switching it down to 6th gear and not really being properly flat out again before the exit of the corner. So just still tiptoeing around a bit and trying still to find the right markers. Ooh, there! Having to do a bit of counter steering and drifting through turn 14, I believe that was. But that is still setting the fastest lap or fastest sector in Sector 2. So let's see what the first time of all the drivers will be. Coming through Blanchimont there, having to lift quite a bit as well. So the conditions are still quite challenging out there, but right then left in the bus stop chicane, of course, doesn't open the DRS. That is not something they have in these conditions, and it's a 157.5.
Somewhere on the exit of Pouon, in fact, Tudor has actually gone into the wall and has lost one of the end plates of his front wing, and he might have actually held up one of the Renaults. That must be Vega Z there, just coming through behind him as well. It might have been a little bit held up by Tudor there. I don't think it was anything too major, and Tudor was trying to recover to the track. But that's a bad start to this qualifying session for the Romanian in the Alfa Romeo. Andinator, however, NR Andy in the Mercedes, going to the top of the timing sheets once again with MD CEO and Huni in second and third. So MD CEO getting one over Huni, who actually outperformed him in the previous qualifying session. Jackal Jack managing a solid P4 thus far, and Pantaleyev's lap time is absolutely not representative, a 2:04.158, so he must have had some trouble. And a lot of the drivers actually invalidated their lap last time out. That's RGM, Kruzix, Dominic, and Gelbevand all invalidated their lap times, and the same was true of Johan as well, who just headed straight back into the pits rather than continuing out there. Will we see any drying conditions throughout the rest of this session? You mentioned some blue sky earlier on, but that seems to have gone away rather quickly, actually. And the rain seems to be coming down ever more now. So actually, it might have been the early stages of the qualifying session where the drivers were able to get the most grip out of the track. Or will it be the tyres chucking the water away from the racing line that will win out? And will we actually just get track improvement towards the end of the qualifying session as we are so used to seeing? But at the moment, it's Andinator in first, MD CEO in second, Uni third, the AM in fourth, Jackal Jack in fifth, Darius in sixth, Vega Z in seventh with once again, a rather uncompetitive lap time, and the same for Pantaleev in eighth.
Yes, and currently just staying on board with Crucix. He's coming through Blanchimont now. Looks like he backed off his lap there to let his teammate of RGM through. So a bit of camaraderie between teammates showing there. As RGM, Crucix's teammate, coming through the bus stop chicane now, finishing off their lap, coming up to the line. It looks like it's quite a competitive time. Yes, goes up into fourth place as we just see Crucix now putting a 2:09 lap time in. That will be 12th place for them. Of course, normally you see drivers trying to put in their lap time on the first time out on the tyre.
Sorry, RGM, by the way, has just spun at the top of the hill out of Radion, and he's facing the wrong way on the track now. The drivers have all been able to avoid him, but he's off on the side in the escape road right now, and that was a very, very hairy moment indeed for RGM there. Kept pushing after setting a lap time on the previous lap, and it really cost him almost big time there. He actually kept it away from the walls somehow. Very fortunate for him in that Red Bull. But that's a bit of a scary moment for him, shall we say.
Oh, Jesus, yeah, you must say. Certainly on the top of Radion, that's not where you want to be stationary. But as I was saying, normally you see drivers in qualifying set their fastest times as quick as possible on the tyres, but during intermediate and wet conditions, it's almost like the tyre improves as, oh there, that's Tudor on an outlap, just going completely off the track through Pouhon. But the intermediate tyres over a couple of laps actually improves on the circuit, so you might not even want to set your fastest time at the beginning of your stint. You might actually want to be out there for 2, maybe 3 laps, as you can see. Currently here we see the fastest times being set on 0 laps, but sometimes we've seen sometimes during the AOR leagues that the fastest lap times on intermediates has come on lap 2. Sometimes I've even seen on lap 3 a pole time being set because they simply just improve over time. As their Andinator, there you see on a 2-lap old intermediate tyre, sets the provisional fastest lap.
Crucix came across the line once again, but invalidated the lap once again. So currently sitting only on a 2:09.7. Crucix is in a real spot of bother once again. We said this about him last session, and we're saying it about him again. The German in the Red Bull really struggling to string a clean lap together right now. He's pushing once again on this one, so it might be worth sticking on board with him for a while, because he should be one of the major players here as someone shoots up the order. I think that was maybe Johan up into 4th position in the Ferrari, unless I'm very much mistaken. And also, you mentioned Tudor having a bit of a moment on his outlap. We saw how much he was struggling in the previous session when he was the first one to go out on the intermediate tyres, try and get some experience. He was really having a rough time of it in that Alfa Romeo. He crashed once already this in Q2 on the exit of Pouhon, damaged his front wing, had to come back into the pits. He's come back out and spun again. I don't think Tudor likes the wet conditions one bit, and I think we could be seeing him going out of this session unless he can really pull something out of the bag in this session.
Yes, certainly, and as I mentioned earlier, I was watching the FP1 on Friday, where it was wet conditions and going to intermediates before then drying up towards the end, and I did see some drivers was really struggling, and one of the drivers struggling was Tudor. He was able to string some. Oh my! That's Crucix! And in the same place as one of the F2 drivers, DNF'd. He goes wide into the sticky out bit, into the barrier, loses his tyre, and he is out. In 13th, he will start no higher. I even think, no, he has put a time in, so he will start no higher than 13th. But oh my, into the wall he goes, just showing how treacherous the conditions are and how easy it is to make a mistake like that.
Yeah, and he just sort of understeered wide into it. He was just a bit greedy with the throttle on the exit as well and just ran out of track pretty much. It wasn't like there was any major moment. He just ran pretty much straight into the barrier there. So Kruzix has already been shuffled down to 14th now as I think as Darius, who was sitting behind him, has been able to settle out. Oh no, of course it was Tudor who puts himself up into P10 at the moment, but that probably won't be good enough come the end of the session when everyone has another crack at it. Zane in the Haas is the only driver behind Kruzix now, and that is an absolute disaster for the German driver. And he got away with it in Q1. He hasn't gotten away with it here. And I tell you what, Andinator as well, currently sitting on pole position. He was the guy following Kruzix around the track, and he slipped through the narrowest gap between the nose of that Red Bull and that wall that the Red Bull hit on the left-hand side. And this could really have been the end for Andinator as well. So great driving from him in the Mercedes to be able to avoid that. That was critical.
Yes, you must say, and I'm currently looking at the fitted tyres. Pantelev is currently fitting the soft tyres, and Andinator is fitting the medium tyres. And the rain is no longer coming down, so now it's currently just the track itself letting the water flow away, and the drivers out on the track still spraying it away. Some drivers again now coming out for their final attempts on the intermediates, but could it be that a driver is daring enough to try the dry tyres in Q2? A driver like Sane, who's in 15th without a time, could maybe be one of the few drivers thinking that it might be worth it. But let's see, 2 minutes to go. It is about to be time if you want to be out on track for your attempt. With about 2 minutes to go, you really need to be out there now. If you're not out on track,
crunch time now.
Yeah, if you're not out on track now, you won't be able to get a time in. The DRS has been re-enabled.
Yeah, they're dallying though. Some of them they're indecisive in the pits. Geldervan's only just come out in the Williams.
Too late.
Yeah, he might just be. He's just going through Lake now, so I think he's probably going to be okay. But a lot of these drivers were really indecisive, and in the end, a lot of them went for what they would see as the safer option, which is the intermediates. But with DRS having been re-enabled, Geldervan could have played a masterstroke here. I was actually quite surprised by Geldervan's performance. He is the F5 champion, and I expected him to be running a little bit higher than this at the moment, given his pedigree from season 19 F5. But it's sitting down in 13th at the moment, only managing a 2:04.1 on that intermediate set of tyres. But now he's on the softs, and this could be huge for him, and it could pretty much guarantee, as long as he keeps it between the white lines, which so many of these drivers have struggled with today. So if he actually invalidates that, that's probably his biggest issue, his biggest worry at the moment. Jackal Jack retires from the session. His car is still circulating out there, so that's just a normal retirement for the McLaren, but he's sitting down in 8th at the moment. I'm not quite sure why he would have retired there, but he's not in the safest position I've ever seen. I guess he thought he wasn't going to be able to get around the track, and perhaps that would be fair enough.
I think the only two drivers to be able to make it out I think only Gelberwan will be able to make it out. I don't think Sane will be able to get a time in. I don't think he'll be able to make it. And Tudor and Darius is on the intermediates. I don't think they'll improve. So I think he is safe. Gelberwan starting his lap now. Oh my, that was close with, I couldn't quite see who that was, but
it was Darius.
That's Darius, yes. Darius in 12th place, getting real close to Gelberwan there. But now look at Sane. No, Sane won't make it. So this means the only driver able to get out of Q2 up into Q3, get out of the danger zone, is Gelberwan. He can push Pantelev out. Let's see. He's coming down into Lecombe now, setting the fastest sector 1. So if he can keep it between the lines, I think he's out. Let's see. Now, beginning to traverse down the hill into Brussels. Can he keep it between the white lines and on the track safely? into No Name. The left-hander there keeps it nicely there. Yes, Dominic in front of him. Dominic, oh, you need to get out of the way. You're blocking.
Ooh.
Getting close there, but Trupuon gets out of the way. Into the back part of the lap, into Campus. There he goes. Then over to Stavlot. He got his lap invalidated around here last lap. Ooh, got close to the white lines there. He's still on. Fastest lap, or fastest sector, sector 2. If he can complete it, it will be the fastest lap.
It's invalidated. I think he's messed it up. I think he invalidated it through there, through Stavlo on the exit. I think he's blown it.
Let's see. He's coming up now, coming out to the bus stop. You'd normally see it red. He's still pushing, coming through the bus stop. He's not giving up. Across the line he comes. It's not invalidated. He's through, pushing Pantalev out. Gerberwan makes it in the final second. He was the final driver to dare it out of the pits on the dry tyres. Sane taking the decision a bit too late. And then he was out. Not able to get through. So, well, Darius still trundling around, but he is on the intermediates. It's looking highly unlikely for him to improve. No, he is currently just trundling around, coming through to the bus stop chicane. Time ticking away from him. So yeah, Gelberwand really getting the perfect timing, crossing the line with 20 seconds to go as the track was just drying out towards the end. And that means that I do believe all the drivers will have a free choice of tyre tomorrow. Since
won't.
No, Gelberwan will have to start on those soft tyres, but all the other drivers will have a free choice of tyre since they qualified and put their fastest lap on a set of intermediates.
Honestly, I think when Gelbervan realizes that, I think he's going to be kicking himself that he didn't just go on to mediums. Like, you could have gone on to any dry tyre here and it would have had the same effect. With all the guys out there on the intermediates, I guess he didn't know that no one else was going to go onto the dry tyres, so he wanted to make absolutely certain. But if I was him, I really would have risked it and gone on the mediums rather than the softs there, because it doesn't matter what compound of dry tyre you're on, you're going to go faster than all the intermediate runners. Nevertheless, it puts him at the top of the standings and gets him out of the drop zone, which is all that matters at the end of the day. Or, by the way, or perhaps I should say, the most important thing. So, Zane didn't actually manage to set a competitive lap time or any lap time at all, invalidating several times during the session and just a bit too late with the soft tyres. So he is out in 15th in the Haas. Kruzix, we saw him crashing out in dramatic fashion in the Red Bull, 14th for him. Darius and Tudor, the Alfa Romeos in 12th and 13th. Not a terribly good showing for them. And Pantaleev just missing out in the Ferrari in 11th. And actually, the Russian driver, you mentioned him as being one of the first to think about the dry tyres in the pits. He was sitting on the softs for a while, went back to the intermediates, dallied too long in the pits, went out too late and couldn't do anything about it. But he had the idea early, and if he just trusted his gut and gone with it, he would have been through into this final Q3 session. But he just didn't have the bravery in the end and was punished for it with P11.
Yeah, he must be kicking himself completely. As I was just on the fitted tyres and I'd seen him with about 5 minutes to go slowly just trundle around between the intermediates and the softs, and then I began seeing a couple of other drivers do it as well, but he decided ultimately to not do it, and that means that he unfortunately got kicked out by the driver that made it through. Of course, Gelberwan really coming out with the master stroke, the only driver to make it through on a set of dry tyres.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, we'll see whether that comes back to bite him, the fact that he did it on softs rather than mediums, because of course the soft tyres go off pretty quickly around here, and in an 100% race that is just going to be exacerbated, I think. Compared to a 50%, you can get away with more. You can get away with one stopping anywhere, pretty much with any tyres in the vast majority of 50% races, but 100% it might not be the same issue, and the drivers might not be quite so aware of what the exact optimal strategies are in an 100% race. And so starting on the soft tyres could really be bad news for Geldervan, especially if no one else is. But of course, we'll have to wait and see on that one. So tune in tomorrow to find out whether that will be just the death knell for him, or whether he'll be able to make the advantage off the line, and then for the first few laps, whether he'll be able to draw out enough of a gap that he can make it work. But at the moment out here, it is, I think, is that Dominic? No, it's the AM in the Toro Rosso. He's the first one out there in Q3 here, and the track is bone dry, and it could hardly be a lovelier day.
Yeah, certainly. And just to dabble a bit more on the strategy for tomorrow, I was looking at the drivers during some long runs, both in FP1, FP2, and a bit in FP3. I don't think any of the drivers are really shown a strategy, because they were all trying something different, and it didn't really look like any of them was committed to one thing. So it is just a full lottery tomorrow to see what the strategy will look like. And that is, of course, all to come, and there's only one way to find out, and that is to tune in tomorrow. But staying in the present, the first driver out there on the soft tyres here in Q3 is the AM. Let's see what the benchmark time will be, if he of course can complete his lap time, setting a 29.9 in the first sector there. So of course not the quickest you'll ever see, but a solid time. Of course not pushing the absolute hardest, that is to come for the end, but you are beginning to push quite a bit, as he actually invalidates it coming into no name. So the first driver out there pushing a bit too hard. Behind him, I believe it is Jackal Jack. He's still going on his lap. He's coming through Pouon now. As you can see, they are almost taking it flat out in these conditions. So great to see that the track has dried up, where we can see them go flat out through there, or almost flat out.
Yeah, there's a real queue actually forming behind Huni at the moment, and that was exacerbated, that problem, by NDCEO, who actually left the pits a lap later than everyone else, but actually exactly a lap later than everyone else. So he fed out right into the middle of the pack. He's having to let everyone through while he's on his outlap, and they are on their push laps. NDCEO, and in fact now we actually see Huni was holding the drivers up too much, or he felt like he was holding them up too much. Evidently he wasn't satisfied with his lap, and he's driven off of the track to let everyone else through. So there's quite a lot of traffic issues at the moment. He's going onto the grass to make sure he's out of the way. Jackal Jack across the line to start the opening salvo of lap times here with a 1:44.5. Johan goes and beats that straight away, but RGM puts him off of the top spot as well. Dominic cannot do the same to RGM though. Coming down in second, but Geldervan does, and now Andinator on top in the Mercedes. And that lap time is so much faster than all the other ones we've seen thus far in this session. And that is it for the very first laps from most of the drivers. The AM currently in the pits. He actually went back into the pits after that invalidation. Vega Z actually did an initial outlap and then went straight back into the pits. I guess he thought there was too much traffic around and wanted to have the track all to himself in the Renault. And he is now out there on his outlap. And NDCEO has just started his flying lap in the Williams. He's looked pretty strong in the first couple of qualifying sessions, in and about third or fourth position in each of those qualifying sessions, as has been the case for both of the Williams cars. So NDCEO should be pretty strong, but with a lot of drivers around him on their in-laps at the moment, he might well find his lap compromised.
Yes, certainly, as we saw down the Camel Straight, teammates helping each other out. NDCEO getting a bit of a slipstream from his teammate Galbawan, as he was on his in-lap. Now coming through Pouon, still pushing hard, so obviously not getting too disturbed by the drivers in front. Following behind, he has Huni coming through the traffic as well, and right in front, or quite a bit in front, he has Jackal Jack, who actually looks like he's pushing, but I believe he is just on his way to the pits. But let's just stay with NDCEO. He's coming up to Blanchimont now. So let's see if he can keep it on the track and within the white lines. Looks like it there, but got a small bit of oversteer coming through Blanchimont, but was able to keep it in a straight line. Through the bus stop chicane, opens the GRS, shortest line to the line, and it's up into third place. Huni behind.
Yeah, that's about where we've been seeing him thus far in this qualifying. and just behind Gail Bavand this time around. In fact, 4/10 behind his teammates at the moment. Huni actually, of course, invalidated his lap and aborted it completely. So he's now just coming into the pits. For some reason, he decided to complete that lap before coming into the pits. I couldn't tell you exactly why that's happened. But nevertheless, Huni has come back into the pits. Would expect to see him up near the top. He's been troubling Andernator, but not quite on the same pace as his teammates so far in qualifying. Vega Z is the only guy on a push lap at the moment. MDCO, of course, having just finished his one. He's into the third sector now, having come through Curveball Frere and along the flat-out section, including Blanchimont, the left-hander here. And then down towards the bus stop he comes. The bus stop, a pretty tricky braking zone, to be honest. Hard to get it right. You kind of diagonal the track on the way in, and actually Vega has not taken all of the track on the left-hand side, and in fact, let's just head right back into.
I believe his lap time did get invalidated. Using that full track map, you can kind of see when they have a red track, it most likely is that it has been invalidated. So the only driver out currently is MDCO, and he is in hot lap ERS. I believe he is pushing for another lap to see what he's able to do. He has a 1:43.603, his own personal best to beat. Let's see as he's coming into the bus stop chicane. He has gone into 0 ERS. Let's see, does he? Yeah, he goes into the pits. Just using a bit of ERS on the back straight to feel how it was like. But now, I believe it's Huni. Yeah, Huni making their way out of the pits. Of course, they're down in 8th place. Wasn't able to get a lap time in, and it is now with just over 3.5 minutes to go. It is now you'll begin to see the drivers coming out for that final mad dash.
Yeah, Huni is going out a little bit earlier than some of the other guys, actually. I think that's because he's feeling the pressure here. He wants the ability to maybe have 2 cracks at it in case he invalidates his first flying lap on this set of soft tyres. However, this could be an issue for him because by the time he comes back around to the start-finish line once again, that's going to be about when the other drivers are thinking about leaving for their own outlaps. So he might find himself pretty compromised by other cars on outlaps when he is on a flyer himself. Vega, having a similar issue with not having set a lap time, has come out of the pits as well onto his outlap. The AM, though, he's got nerves of steel in the Toro Rosso, and he decides he needs to do no such thing.
Now the rest of the drivers still in the pits with about 2.5 minutes to go. Of course, a normal qualifying lap is 1:42, so an outlap is a bit longer than that. But if you hold it for a bit too long, you risk not being able to get your way around, and with quick drivers behind you, you really don't want that to happen. That's why we see Gerber out now as well. We see Jackal-Jack coming out now. We see Andy coming out now. We see, well, we see the whole grid beginning to make their way out now, just to make sure that they'll make their way around in time for when it all happens. There's yellow flags in Sector 3. That's just for Huni starting their laps. So yeah, Huni, first driver in the final here to set their final lap time, you could say. Maybe their second to last. Huni might decide to do 2 laps behind Vegas starts theirs. But Huni already coming up to the first bit of traffic, catching them actually at a great point, a place where you won't be hit with dirty air, but you do catch a little bit of a sneaky slipstream down the Kemmel Straight. Doesn't benefit too much there, but does set the fastest first sector of the qualifying session yet. So let's see, coming through Sector 2, what about Vegas actually coming to the end? It is not good enough in the first sector, 29.8, so in the lower end of the times, but not too bad. Huni now coming up to, well, actually not catching the traffic yet. Good for him. He does not want to catch the traffic, so he wants to hope that they are pushing on their outlaps to make it the perfect time round. Coming up to the third sector now. Let's see what his second sector will look like. It is not purple, it's 1:15.2. Now coming through the flat out section, after curb pull flare, where you just want to go as much flat out and just want to be in as high as ERS mode as you can be. You want to get the perfect amount of speed, but he's catching some traffic in the bus stop chicane. Not the perfect time to catch it, but it looks like it is not too much of a struggle. He slows quite a bit down there in the bus stop chicane, but comes up, and it's only good enough for 4th place for him. And he has backed off, so he'll start no higher. What about Vegas? Vegas coming into the bus stop chicane now, into hot lap ERS, opens the DRS on the exit there, takes the short line there up into 5th place, but decides to push on. He wants to try again. Then it'll be Gelberwand now, as the time has run out. It looked like Vegas was able to get over the line before the time ran out, so he's able to do another lap if he decides to do so. Gelberwand coming through Puon now with Jackal Jack right behind him. Make sure not to get invalidated, as he went quite wide and just had a tyre hanging on there. Still, he is playing with the white lines there or thereabouts, still not invalidated, but he is quite slow coming through the second sector. I don't think he will improve. Already up to 135, so I don't think it's any good showing from him. What about Jackal Jack behind? Jackal Jack is able to improve. It looks like he might be able to do something. He's in 9th currently. Coming through the final corner, opens the DRS. What's he able to do? Coming over the line, goes up into 6th place. Then behind, I believe it is Huey. No, it's Andinator. Andinator across the line. New fastest lap, 142.371. Provisional pole position for him now. Anyone can challenge. Doesn't look like. Gelberwand, 2nd place. MDCO coming through the final couple of corners as RGM puts it into 5th place. MDCO, what's he able to do? Opens the DRS, coming up to the line. Oh, goes into 2nd place. Big improvement, but not good enough. Now Vegas, the final driver to cross the line, I think. To cross the line he goes. It'll only be enough for 7th place. Huni there, invalidated lap time as well. So that is your qualifying results. Andinator taking pole position as we thought.
Yeah, absolutely, and you can tell that he's just a cut above the rest of the field, at least in qualifying here. He really was clearly away from the rest of the field, over half a second from MDCEO in 2nd in that Williams, and then almost a full second to Gelberwand in 3rd, 9/10 down to the 3rd place man. So Andinator really setting down a marker here, throwing down the gauntlet and saying, catch me if you can, and he doesn't think they can, and I'm not sure they can either. Kruzix would have been the person that would have been most likely to be able to go toe-to-toe with Andinator, but starting down in 14th as he is in the Red Bull, it's going to be very surprising if he can do anything to Andinator. So, unless there's some wet weather, maybe Andinator gets caught out on strategy or something. He's looking very, very strong going into tomorrow. MDCEO and Huni both had the advantage as well of huge slipstreams from one another down the Kemmel Straight, and neither of them were able to make it work well enough for them. I think Huni in particular will be disappointed with his lap time. He was really up there with Andinator in the first couple of sessions, or getting pretty close to him. And now to be 1.2 seconds away when he had that advantage of that slipstream down the Kemmel Straight, I don't think he'll be too happy with that.
No, certainly not. But that is your qualifying results there for Q3. But I believe that it is that is it for the track action we have for today. But all of this you saw here was not for nothing, of course, because tomorrow, that is when we will have the race. And we won't just have one race tomorrow, we will have 3. We will both have the F2 feature race, the F2 sprint race followed right after, and then we will have the F100% race. As I'm going around on my notes here to find the times, here we go. We will be live at around 5:25 BST tomorrow, starting off, as I said, with the F2 races. And then tomorrow at 8 PM we will be live here on the channel with the 100% race. So the qualifying today really showed both for the F2 race and for the F1 race what the drivers were able to do, and showing how this track is just up for surprises just round the corner. But we will see you tomorrow. Thank you for watching tonight. Thank you for all of you who stuck with me through F2, and thank you, Jacob, for joining me for the F1 qualifying here. As I said, we'll be back tomorrow. Until then, have a good one, take care, and good night.